J-Lo.
The Clippers can do whatever the hell they want, but I'm not going to trust them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but
Stop, yo, Mukhtar. We're reaching the halfway mark of the season. What teams should hit the panic button because the playoff implications are starting to matter more than at the beginning of the season?
I'm just gonna pick one team, and I'm pretty disappointed in them, and that's Boston. It's just you have two guys in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum having career years, having the best years in their career, and the team is underperforming. They're at 500 or just below it, I think. They're missing Marcus Smart, and it's crazy to think how Marcus Smart is so important to this team. They're 5-6 without Marcus Smart, which is horrible. Kemba Walker is not giving them any. He's giving them production at the point guard position, but he's not giving them what he earns in his paycheck. Kemba Walker is giving me 17 points per game, shoot 37% from the field, 34% from three, and he's only giving me 4 assists in 30 minutes a game. So that can't be good. That's not good enough for me for my all-star point guard. And it's just I don't like the fact that Boston's so reliant on Marcus Smart. And if Marcus Smart is that big of an impact player, that's dangerous for a team. So that's just my opinion.
Before I move on to Perry, I want to ask you a quick question based off like your assessment. Do you believe that it's a coaching issue, a GM issue, because it's more than just the players, right?
I mean, I think it's roster composition. They're not like with what Boston has had over the last 5 to 6 years in assets and what they've accumulated and held on to and all of this that Danny Ainge has had. He's never really assessed their like really main issues, which is the big position. They haven't really had consistent big play ever. Well, they had consistent big play with Al Horford, but he didn't re-sign, and they followed that up with signing Aaron Baines, who just walked. So like they never really solidified that position. They never really got good bench players. Like I think coaching does play a part, but I feel like, come on, you're the GM, you have all these assets, and you let guys walk. You're not getting anybody in there. Something's got to give.
I also don't think Kemba Walker's healthy.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah,
I don't. It doesn't seem like he's fully healthy. He's not. He's
Not
not
at
the
all.
same dude. He's not the same dude he was before this season. Sorry, before the playoffs last year. So that is true.
and then Jeff Teague just doesn't look good from the games.
Oh, they're
that I've
getting
seen.
no point guard. They're not getting
Yeah.
anything from their point guards really. So
Yeah, because
Yeah, that's
the rookie there that they have, what's his name?
Payne Pritchard.
Peyton
Yeah.
Pritchard, from Oregon.
Yeah, he's whatever. But yeah, like no, it's tough for them for sure. And like I think it was Jalen, wasn't it you, if I remember correctly, who's saying like, yo, it's time to get rid of Brad Stevens?
Yeah, I said I think Perry. I think we all agreed that this season is make or break for Brad Stevens. If I'm Danny Ainge, I'm looking at Brad Stevens and I'm saying, look, because I think Danny Ainge has done a pretty good job over the past 5 years in putting the Celtics in positions to win. So when LeBron was carrying mops and buckets and broomsticks through the Eastern Conference, that was a chance, and they had probably the best roster over the last 5 years that Boston could have composed. They had Al Horford at the 5, Marcus Morris Sr., Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Scary Terry. They had all them boys, and still couldn't get over the Celtics. They couldn't get past the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sorry, I'm gonna call them the LeBron Cavaliers. And then
Just
last
call
year
them
they couldn't
LeBron.
get past and then last year they couldn't get past Miami. I think they underperformed against Miami. So I think it's time for Brad Stevens to be on the hot seat. Like, we revere him as a coach, but like, bro, like, what are you doing, bro?
Do you also think that like Scary Terry's like letting him leave? Do you think that is a big implication? Because Scary Terry's playing amazing basketball with the Hornets right now. Do you think if he stayed with Boston that it would be like good, like they would be better, or?
I mean, hindsight is 2020, but I think they did the right thing. I think they did the right thing in letting him walk at the time. At the time they did, because if we remember the season after, what was his production, right?
Yeah,
So
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I
You're right
think
about
I think
that.
they did the right thing. I mean, like I said, man, hindsight is always 2020. He's making them look real bad now, but if we look at Terry Rozier the year after he signed with Charlotte, and we look at those numbers, they're
Mhm.
very, very underwhelming, and it looked like they made the right decision.
Perry, do you have anything to add about the Boston debate before we go to your team?
I do actually. I think when I look at this roster, um, I do blame Danny Ainge. I think you need to find a way to make your acquisitions translate. People know him as a GM to fleece other GMs, but he fleeced them for what? Um, and the point I want to bring up is that to me, I think it is a coaching issue, but it also seems like the pie is getting smaller
Mhm.
and players are getting better. So you have to really decide what you're going to do. Either you're going to keep the team young and have them grow together, a la Golden State, and build something, or you're going to acquire a couple veterans, and try to get along that way. But right now, it seems that the pie is getting smaller because Jaylen Brown's improving so much.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I want to ask you a question based off that because you did call on the coaching and you brought up the Golden State Warriors, how they built from like with the Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you think that the Boston Celtics need their Steve Kerr, and like it's time for Brad Stevens to go keep the team young and then get their Steve Kerr by firing um, Brad Stevens? You know what I'm saying?
I think Brad Stevens needs to be fired out of a cannon. I'm looking at I'm looking at Mark Jackson. Like, I don't know why he's being whiteballed in the league right now because this
Mm,
is ridiculous.
mm,
And you can tell that people are actually making a concerted effort to look over his resume
Yep.
because he
Yep.
built the outline of a championship team, and literally every Golden State Warriors player has spoken or sung his praises. So I don't understand on that regard. So that's my first point. And my second point is, as a coach, you need to be able to manage egos. That's like your job, right? You can't teach
mm,
these players how to play basketball anymore. It's done. Once you're in the NBA, it's no longer a coach's game. So you have to find a way to manage egos, and it doesn't seem like that's being done. So I do see like a sense of power struggle between
mhm.
Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Obviously, like, they might be boys on and off the court, but Jaylen Brown is demanding more attention because he's averaging career years. Everyone's improving. Marcus Smart. This is a point I wanted to contend or ask Mukhtar about, because you said something along the lines of Marcus Smart isn't valuable enough to explain or articulate the losses that the Celtics have been going through, right? Or you tell me if I misquoted you, or sorry, misparaphrased.
I said if the Celtics are really like, if Marcus Smart is really what keeps this team, what's the driving force of this team, and he's the only reason why they win, then that's an issue for me because I can't really rely on a role player like that to be my driving force to win. I need my stars to be that guy.
I understand that. So the reason why I'm going to disagree is that I think that in the NBA there are two types of players, right? Like, there are the players who fill up the stat sheet, and then there are what I call impact players. So an impact player is someone who can do the little things, the nitty gritty, that can
Mm,
kind of bring that cohesion to my team.
mm,
I look at Draymond Green. If you look at his stat line, it's pedestrian. But now, if you watch, and I'm not trying to say that you're not watching like Celtics games. I think you watch the most basketball out of all of us.
mhm,
But if you watch a Celtics game, you can see what Marcus Smart kind of brings. Because I remember he was shooting at, I think, 30% on the field or 37 on the field one year, but he was still playing, and I wanted to know why. So I was watching. He was doing the little things. He was guarding Giannis for some plays and shutting him down. He was taking charges. He was taking the best defensive. He was taking the best perimeter player on the opposite team.
mm.
Plus, he was facilitating. He makes those extra passes. He runs the offense in specific sets. He has that little post game. He rebounds. He was getting a lot of offensive rebounds that changed the direction of the game. So when someone says you can't be reliant on a player like that, I contend and I say, yes, you can. You can't be reliant on him to score 20. No, but that's not his game. His game is to literally take Tatum, to take Brown, and to maximize their effectiveness. And he does that by alleviating the pressure. So now Jaylen Brown doesn't need to guard. Let's say they play excuse me. Let's say they play like the Hawks. Now Jaylen Brown doesn't need to guard Trae Young for the entirety of the game. He can share that responsibility with a Marcus Smart. You get what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
100%. But what I'm saying, I'm not saying that Marcus Smart is not reliable. I'm not saying that Marcus Smart is.
That wasn't my argument. My argument was just you can be reliant on an impact player to bring the team together and to keep that cohesion. You can't be reliant on him to average 20.
I absolutely agree with you. I see his impact. Like I saw for that whole 7-game series against the Raptors, he absolutely destroyed them. But what I'm saying is guys like LeBron, KD, Kawhi, those kind of guys are supposed to be my game changers and my game swingers. And Marcus Smart is like a Tristan Thompson, a Draymond Green. He's a piece of the puzzle. And I need that guy. But I need my big guys. I need my guys that get paid $30 million a year, the guys who make the All-Star team, the guys who represent my franchise to actually win me the game. And that right now they're not doing that. And it seems like Marcus Smart is the reason why they're not doing that, which is, I think it's a bad position to be in when you rely on a player like that. That's what I believe.
I know we're pressed for time, so I'm just going to quickly bring up this point. And if you want to disagree, you want to disagree. But if you look at the Warriors, right, this season, I had this conversation with J-Lo. And you look at how they struggled. What was the difference in them struggling and getting rinsed by teams and getting to the projected 8th seed, I believe, or the 8th seed?
Was Stephen Curry catching a rhythm?
No, it was Draymond Green. Once Draymond Green came, they started winning games at a high clip. That's the importance
of the chemistry.
Yeah, I know, but that's the importance of an impact player.
All right, so Perry, now can we get you to tell us quickly what your team that you believe is in the hot seat?
I wanted to be funny and say the whole NBA because my Brooklyn Nets are about to take the whole thing, but I'm not going to do that today. I'm going to say the Cleveland Cavaliers, man. I was originally going to say Sacramento Kings or my Rockets, but I'm going to say the Cleveland Cavaliers because do you guys want to hear something that's going to boggle your minds?
What's up?
Of the last 10 games, ask me how many they won and don't answer the question if you know.
How many have they won?
0. They lost 10 in a row.
And where were they situated before that?
I believe they were a projected playoff team. They lost 10 in a row. That's not how this life works. You don't go from beating the Brooklyn Nets, getting all this hype, playing well and that being the highlight of your careers. Like, that's not how this life works. Something needs to change because you can't consistently be this bad. You can't talk about the emergent future of the Cleveland Cavaliers behind Colin Sexton and Darius Garland and lose 10 in a row. I know it's a hard league. I understand that. I understand that these are the top 1% of the world, but don't be the bottom percent of the top 1%. Don't be that guy. That was my little soliloquy. I can't allow that. And can I just use one more before I let J-Lo take the mic?
Make it quick, and I'll let you do it.
Atlanta Hawks. I believe they made the best offseason acquisitions in the NBA. I believe they were a team that went under the radar, but I do believe that they're a team that was the most well-equipped to be in the playoffs and not just compete for the playoffs, but compete for the upper echelon of the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. To be beat out by the Knicks, the Hornets, the Bulls, I think the Heat deserve to be ahead of them. To be 11th, I think is ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Bogdanovich is injured though.
It doesn't matter, bro. They
That's their big acquisition though.
They got a whole roster rebuild. They got Danilo Gallinari. They got Bogdanovich. Trae Young was supposed to take that next step. The role players are stepping up. This team is not playing well at all, and I can't really. No, they have a lot of pieces. They have John Collins. No.
I'll admit I did expect more from the Atlanta Hawks too.
11th?
Yeah, I didn't expect them to be 11th, and I how we were talking about how the Raptors are like slumping, but like they obviously figured it out now. I heard people arguing, and I think some of you even said it, that the Hawks are gonna do better than the Raps. Yeah, and to be 11th, that Hawks team should be in playoffs no matter what.
They have Bogdanovich out and DeAndre Hunter. Like, those are two big pieces.
But you can say the same thing that Jalen's been saying though, because Miami's been going through COVID complications, and a lot of their stars have been out, and they should figure it out. But
that was like a 5-game span compared to like an 8-week to like a whole year. Your mic's muted, JLo. Your mic's muted.
JLo, your mic's muted.
Sorry, the Raptors also went through the same thing when they were missing players, and their roster is worse.
Yeah, that's true.
The 4 seed. Their roster is atrocious compared to the Atlanta Hawks.
Yeah, and they don't have
Atlanta can't defend, man.
I'm not a Toronto guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are, bro.
Yo, Jalen. What team do you think needs to hit the panic button?
For me, it's a toss-up between Milwaukee and Denver, but I'm gonna go.
You can explain both if you can do it quick.
Okay, I'm gonna go. Okay, we'll do both. So Milwaukee concerns me because we're sort of seeing the same patterns that got them swept in the playoffs, or they lost in 5. They lost in 5 to Miami. It's really the same pattern. I know they're missing Drew Holiday, but bro, like Chris Middleton getting strapped by Norman Powell and OG Anunoby like is unacceptable for a dude making $30 million. And it was back-to-back games that he got strapped. Like Chris Middleton is terrible. Can we just go out and say it? This dude looks like Predator and he's terrible.
50-40-90, bro.
Bro, no, I don't care.
50-40-90, bro.
50-40-90 against the Knicks and 50-40-90 in the playoffs.
Bro, he does it for a whole year. He does it for a whole year.
Nah, you can miss me. This dude looks like Predator. Anyways, so that Milwaukee. Somebody said, I think it was Perry that said this, or maybe it was Mukhtar, but Milwaukee needs an actual star, and Giannis needs to be the second option. Chris Middleton,
I said this.
Yeah, that was Perry 100%.
Third best player.
Yeah.
And it's looking more and more like that's the case. That needs to be the case. Now, my issue with Denver, Nikola Jokic is having an MVP level season. It's crazy that he's 7 foot tall, built like a Coca-Cola truck driver, and basically averaging a triple-double.
Why Coca-Cola? We just need that justification. Out of all the things you could have said, this man said Coca-Cola. I just need to know why it was that.
That's the first thing that popped into my head. My apologies.
Fair. That's fair.
Averaging a triple-double, but his team is out of the playoff picture right now. Denver should not be anywhere near the Golden State Warriors. And they're jostling for position with the Golden State Warriors. They were 9th at the beginning of the weekend. They're 7th right now. But 7th to me is still too low for the Denver Nuggets. They failed to take the next step that everybody thought they would. Jamal Murray has been completely underwhelming this year and has kind of left Nikola Jokic out to dry in my eyes with his performances. He's had multiple performances where he scored single digits, had less than 3 assists. You're a point guard. I'm going to keep the same energy because when Kyrie does it, I eviscerate this man. Jamal Murray should never have as a point guard under 3 assists. I don't care if Nikola Jokic is the primary distributor. You're a point guard. Excuse my language. You're a point guard. You can't have less than 3 assists. And I think that letting Jeremy Grant walk was huge.
Oh man.
The way he's playing.
I think they made a big mistake re-signing Paul Millsap, which I kind of understand in a sense, but now they have to play PJ Dozier. Does anybody know where PJ Dozier was before the Denver Nuggets? Thank you.
G-League.
Denver, man, it's really underwhelming. I'm worried for them. I really don't think they're gonna.
Would you trade for Bradley Beal if you're Denver? Give up Michael Porter Jr.
Give up Michael Porter Jr. and I get Bradley Beal?
Yeah.
I would.
Big haul. Oh, I would do that, man.
You know what I find really crazy is that the teams that, like a lot of you mentioned, like we're talking Boston, we're talking Milwaukee. They didn't make it to the conference final last year. With Miami and like Denver, these are all the teams that were like top level teams last season, and this year they can't figure it out. And you bring up a really good point about Denver. We had this discussion before. We thought they were going to take a next leap because we argued a while back about the fact that when they were playing in the bubble, they were playing back-to-back Game 7. So by the time they saw the Lakers, they were worn out. This was their year to prove that, hey, no, we're the top dogs. And you are right. It does start with Jamal Murray because Jokic is like balling his mind out.
And they're a young team.
Yeah, exactly. And they still have a lot of room to grow, but I thought they were gonna take the next step. Perry, you said you had a question for Jalen.
JLo, I heard your Milwaukee take. I partly agree with it, but I partly disagree with it. And I wanted to ask you a question in order to clarify the disagreements. So with the Milwaukee Bucks, I feel that some of the games that they're losing are games where certain defensive schemes are a little different and things of that sort. We propose the argument that if you look at how they have if you look at how they've lost a lot of their playoff series, it's been because they recycle similar game plans and teams have figured it out and game planned against it. But now that they're trying new things, despite them losing, would you not be relieved that there is something that they're testing in order to kind of approach the playoffs? And do you think it's worth the wait for the playoffs, or do you think it's worth hitting the panic button?
So that's a great point that you bring up there, because I do believe that they're at least trying defensive schemes, new defensive schemes, but they're also trying new offensive sets, and they're trying to get. It looks like they're trying to get Giannis in different positions. But my issue is that I think Mike Budenholzer is doing this reluctantly, and I'd rather you do something that you actually believe in than do it for the sake of doing it. And I think that's what we're seeing. So I don't think Mike Budenholzer is truly having these players buy into the new schemes that he's running. And I saw the best example of it was against Toronto. Down the stretch of the first game, they were up 9 points, and that lead evaporated in literally a minute and a half. I mean, Muck was watching that game. We were both watching the game at the same time, but that lead evaporated in a minute and a half. It's like when they went down on the offensive end, it's almost they looked like the Phoenix Suns with how quickly they were shooting. And I noticed, because I watched the two previous Bucks games, I noticed that that's been a trend. So for me, I think that it's great that he's trying something new. And I eviscerated Billy Donovan for this too in OKC when he ran the same set for 6 minutes straight.
We don't.
Oh my god.
But I'd rather you do something that you believe in rather than do something for the sake of doing it. So that's how I'll answer your question.
All right.